What's up, everybody? I'm former quarterback Malik Rosier, and if football, sports interviews, and having a good time interests you, then make sure to click the like and subscribe button as it really does help support this channel, and it also makes sure that you guys never miss a new video. How's everyone doing? And we're back with another episode. So for this week, guys, I'm super excited to go down to Miami on Friday, which is tomorrow. Miami has their spring game. I'm really excited because Coach Mario is definitely going to give the fans something to be excited for. There should be a lot of energy. These guys should be flying around having fun. I think there's going to be a really good turnout. So I know I'm personally super excited to be there. In the last episode I dropped three other colleges that I'm super excited to see, some of their quarterback battles. Maybe it's, the new head coach that's there. And I'm wondering, how is he going to do? So the first section that we're going to get into is obviously, you guys know, is the college news. So this section right here is specifically about, college athletes, whether they're in college currently or whether, they're transferring over kind of from college to the NFL. So my top six freshmen that I'm really looking forward to having a good spring. Number one, Ruben Owens. He's a running back, Texas A&M. I know A&M lost, A-Chain, which was a huge loss for them. They got a freshman quarterback, really now a sophomore quarterback, Connor Wigman. I think the guy's really, really good. I think he's going to have a chance, to put up some good numbers. And obviously, Texas A&M has done a great job in the past couple of years of recruiting. But just from the stuff I've heard, this guy's really explosive, and he has all the right tools to kind of be their every down back. I don't know if he'll start in the beginning, but I think over time he'll get his chance. And when he does, I think he's going to have a hell of a year, to be honest with you guys. The next one, obviously, from a Miami fans, we don't want to hear about this guy, but Hakeem Williams, he's a receiver. Obviously, we guys know that they have Johnny Wilson, who's really, really good. Micah Pittman, that's going to play in the slot. And then if you can add this guy on the other side, and he can make some plays, and obviously, they're going to have other guys in rotation. But I think he's a freshman. He's a bigger size guy, 6'2", 6'3". He has really good hands, and I think he's going to be able to make some plays for Florida State. And he's going to be a freshman I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on in the spring game. So next is Dante Moore. They do have a quarterback right now at UCLA. I do think he's good. I think that he needs to work a little bit more on his mobility, which is where I think Dante Moore gives them, a new type of style of offense. I think they can do a little more RPOs. They can do a little more stretch stuff where you got guys flowing and he can really pull on the backside. So I like Dante Moore. I think the kid can throw, and I'm super interested to see how he does. Number four is Caleb Downs. So Caleb Downs is a safety, number one safety, University of Alabama. We know how Nick Saban, can make all these defensive guys, especially if they're super athletic, into first-round draft picks. I'm pretty sure that Caleb will probably be another one. So he's someone, at least on the defensive side for Alabama, that I'm going to keep my eye on. The next one, I know you guys can't see his name, is Jeronin Dickey. Jeronin is a receiver, big guy from Oregon. I think with him, with being with Bo Nix, who's an expert leader, he's been in a lot of big games. I think, with them two as a combination, he should have a high productive year. I watched some of his film. I will say that most of the guys that he played looked a little smaller than him, actually looked a lot smaller than him. So, I'm very interested when he's at Oregon. Does the size, does the speed, does the physicality part kind of get to him? And I think he is a physical guy. I think he, likes the aggression. But when you're hitting people your size, whenever you used to hit people that are smaller than you, it is a big adjustment. But I think he's someone that, will have impact for University of Oregon. And last one, I got to talk about my Canes. The last one is Ruben Bain. This guy has been making noise all spring. I think he's going to be a huge, huge part of if, Coach Goodry wants to have a successful defense without having to blitz. You're going to need not only good, your 1 and 2 defensive tackle, which I think we have, in LT and Mesidor, but you're also going to need some of these young guys coming in and making plays, giving these guys breaks, being able to, come in with high energy. And so I think Ruben Bain's going to do a really good job. I know there's been a ton of talk about this guy and, the production that he's been doing. So next, we're going to switch over, to my top 10 NFL draft players. And again, guys, I know it's kind of hard to see, so I'll go through it slow to make sure everyone, can at least hear me. So first is Jalen Carter. Guy's physical. He's big. He's mean. He is a good character guy. Like, I've been around the guy. But I think when you're talking about, player production, who is going to give you the most bang for your buck, to me, you got to go with Jalen Carter. Number two, Bryce Young. This guy has been an absolute phenom. We'll talk a little bit about him and where I think he gets drafted at. But I think when you're talking about a guy that has been consistent throughout his entire college career at a high level, at a most, eyes on me level, like he's at Alabama, he's the quarterback. So this guy has produced game after game, year after year. So he just takes that spot. Number 3, Will Anderson, big physical leader of the defense. I think that he'll end up somewhere in like the top 5 to 6. There could be some fluctuation, but this guy is really good. CJ Stroud, I have him at number 4, but he's probably my favorite quarterback. I think out of all the quarterbacks that are quarterback ready right now, CJ Stroud is number 1. We talk about size, speed. Obviously, Bryce Young has thrown to really fast guys, but I think that with the ability that CJ Stroud showed us versus Georgia with how many points he put up, yes, he had elite receivers, but Georgia has elite DBs. So when you talk about a guy that's throwing really good ball placement, throwing really good timing, I think CJ Stroud proved himself versus Georgia. Number five is Devon Witherspoon, defensive back. This guy's made a lot of noise. I think he's really, really good. I'm interested to see what team takes him. Peter Skolof. We'll call him Peter S. because I can't say his name right. So Peter S, just because I don't want to mispronounce his last name, is a big physical guy. I think he's probably going to wind up transitioning into a guard because he is 6'4", unless, he has a lot of good adjustments. One thing that when I watched him and did some reading up on him, long bars, with defensive end are like 6'6", 6'7". They come in, they give him the long arm, and, they can either, keep him off of them, or even worse, they're able to, push him back into the pocket. I think he has a high motor, great feet, great base, great balance, does a great job of keeping his hands active. But when you're talking about going against, the Jadeveon Clowney's, the TJ Watt, some of those guys like that have really good uses of their arms, I think that he's going to struggle. So I see him being impactful, but, I think over time he's going to wind up shifting to a guard if a team has a really good tackle. Number 7, Anthony Richardson. This guy's a freak of nature. I don't know if he'll wind up being a quarterback. So number 7 is Anthony Richardson. I don't know if he'll wind up being a quarterback for all his years in the NFL, but I believe he has the right OC that, can understand how to utilize him well. If he has the right quarterback coach that, can teach him proper fundamentals and keep him, on pace so that he's getting better and better every year, I think this guy right here has the highest ceiling out of everyone, but he could also be the biggest bust out of everybody. So to me, there's a lot of controversy around Anthony Richards, but I think between his size, I've talked to people, he works hard. I think he loves the game of football and he wants to be a quarterback. So when you add that, with a good OC and a good quarterback coach, you have a recipe for something that could be really special. So I got him at 7. Number 8 is Tyree Wilson, defensive end, high motor, big kid, 6'6", does a lot of good things. I think that he'll actually get taken higher than some of these guys that are above him. But, he's someone that I think in the next 2 to 3 years in the NFL will have a really big name. Number 9, I'm putting him up here, is Christian Gonzalez. He's 6 foot, 6'1", 197. So really big guy, ran a 4.3 something. So really fast at that size. So when you're talking about size, speed, and looks the part, like he has all of it. So I got him at 9. I don't know really where he's gonna, fall into. He could fall in top 10. He could fall out depending on, needs of the team. But I think he's someone that, with athletic ability, film tape, he's someone that you got to have in your top 10. And last is Paris Johnson Jr. I think this guy at Ohio State did a really good job. I know a lot of people targeted him. I think he did a real good job of, showing his athletic ability during his pro day. If you guys watched him, he looked like an absolute phenom when he was moving around. He looked like, a basketball player, basically, like a big guy that was just super quick, super agile. So, I got Paris Johnson Jr. in there, and I think he's going to have a lot of impact wherever he goes. And he might even be a guard himself. He's talked about, I don't care if I play tackle or guard. I think this guy's just a football player that wants to be on the field and that enjoys, just going out there and pancaking people. So got to put him in my top 10. So next we're going to go, where I kind of have guys drafted in the order. So number 1, I have CJ Stroud going to Carolina. I really think this fits him a little more. Obviously, I know Bryce Young has been a more consistent player when you're talking about on a high level winning. But I also think that when you're talking about NFL transferring guys that are having long-term careers, more guys like CJ Stroud are having long careers than Bryce Young. I mean, you're talking about like Kyler Murray. The only guy that I know that's played a long time that's had super success in it was Drew Brees. I mean, look at Baker. Everyone thought Baker was going to be great. Nothing. So, I think there is some hesitation with Bryce Young, but, as you guys can see, I have him at number 2. So I don't think there's that much just because of the consistency that he's shown. But right now, if I'm Carolina, after watching, Ohio State versus Georgia, I don't think that there's a quarterback that proved himself better than CJ Stroud versus that game. So those are my number 1 and 2. Very interesting what Houston does. As you know, they got Davis Mills, guy's super smart, QB country guy. Really like him. But, if you got a chance to take Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, you got to take both of them. Or if you got a chance to take CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, you got to take them. So, obviously those two guys can go 1 and 2. They can kind of flip flop back and forth. But to me, I think that CJ Stroud would be a little bit safer of a pick with Carolina. And it's not anything with Bryce Young. It's just more of the track record of, quarterbacks that are under 6'1". So number 3, we're going to go with Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson. I know Jalen Carter got into some trouble, so I don't really know what Arizona's trying to do. I could see Tyree Wilson sliding in here. He's big, he's physical. He would really help them on the, defensive line. At 4 at Indiana, I have, Will Anderson or I have Anthony Richardson. I'd be very surprised they went for Anthony Richardson, but I also know they need a quarterback. So, there's some couple of different guys that I can slide there. But when you're talking about someone that gives me a lot of upside, I think Anthony Richardson would fall in number 4 right there. At number 5, as you can tell, they're kind of with 3 and 5. I think Seattle needs a defensive lineman. I think this is kind of more where Jalen Carter will fit in. Seattle in the past has, taken guys that this is just from me reading that have more of a violent past. And obviously, like I said earlier, Jalen Carter is not a evil person or a mean person. I think he was just a kid that made a bad decision, and it happens. And so, I think this is where, those guys can kind of flip flop depending on, which staff kind of wants which guy. 6 and 7 or the same thing. I think Detroit with what they're building, I think they need some offensive linemen. So, I have Peter and I have Paris here, Paris Johnson, and same thing with Las Vegas. Las Vegas just brought over Jimmy Galapagos, so they're going to want to protect him, and I think these two guys can, have instant impact on whatever team they go to. So I think that Detroit and the Las Vegas Raiders are going to, pick one of those two guys right there. At number 8, I have Christian Gonzalez. I think he's someone that can really, really help the Atlanta defense. I think they just need help in a lot of different places, but I think defensive back, especially when you're talking about an elite corner that, can lock down one side of the field, I don't think Atlanta could pass that up. Next at number 9, as I have Darnell Wright, obviously they need another tackle. I think they're going to go off the offensive lineman, just kind of show Justin Fields, hey, man, we're going to bring you an elite receiver. We're going to bring you some elite offensive lineman. Now it's your job to show us why we drafted you first round, why you're the man. And so I think they're going to take an offensive tackle. They take another position. I wouldn't be too surprised about it, but, I think for Chicago, what they're trying to build, at least offensively, taking, offensive tackle could really help them. At number 10 is, Philadelphia, and I think they could take a defensive back with, Devon Witherspoon. He was in my top 10. That guy's a freak athlete. And someone, too, is Lucas Van Ness. So he is a really, really good defensive end. He was super productive. So, I don't know where Philly wants, some internal guys, which I know, they struggled creating consistent pressure, or if they want a defensive back because, the game nowadays is such an air raid type of game. Like, do I need a defensive back that over the next year or two I can develop into, that lockdown corner, which, this guy could be a lockdown corner year 1. But, I'm super interested to see, where these kind of picks lies. And I know it's kind of hard to see. I want to apologize about that. I'll make sure to, clean that up. But just let me know what you guys think about this list. This is kind of, my top 10 list of, where guys are going to get drafted at. So next, we're going to go into my top 6 sleepers of this draft. Obviously, you guys should know some of these names. Number 1 is Darnell Washington. So Darnell is a freak, 6'8", over 230, 240. The guy can move. I think he's going to have the ability to basically be an extension of a left tackle. I think he's out of all these tight ends is probably the closest to, like a he's the closest out of all these tight ends that is closest to like a Gronkowski, big, physical, will mash you in the run game and then, catch a post or, a seam route right over the middle over your linebackers or safety. So I think Darnell is someone over the next couple of years you guys are going to hear more and more about. One thing I just really encourage him is take care of himself because he's a bigger guy. When you're out there running with corners and safeties, they're going to try to take your knees out. And so I think this guy's going to have a really great career. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, he's going to be someone that, is a staple tight end for whatever program he goes to. Number 2, and these are in no orders. Number 2 is Tank Dell. He did great at Houston. I think he's someone that will really, really explode on the scene. I know he's a little bit undersized, but, with his route running, the way that this game has changed to more of a spacing kind of game, it's almost transitioned almost like a college version. You're going to see more and more guys like this that understand space, that understand route running, that are quick, that are fast, and that you do a really good job of using their hands and, creating yards after the catch. So I think he's going to be someone next couple of years, if he gets a shot, he'll do really, really well. I'm a big fan of Hayden Hooker. I've seen even a couple mock drafts of him being a first round quarterback. I don't know if they'll do that just because of his injury, but when you talk about someone that can spin it, that looks the part, that's the size, they can play in a really, really good air raid kind of offense. And when you give him a good run game, it's going to be even better. So I think he's someone that if he can get healthy, he can take care of himself and get a shot. I think he's someone that will have a pretty decent career in the NFL. Number 4 is Tank Bigsby. This guy, I think for Auburn was the man. Obviously they had a quarterback last year, and he did a really good job towards the end of the year with implementing his legs and making throws and things like that. But Auburn didn't have like a top 5, top 10 quarterback. And so, I think that in return calls Tank, especially in the SEC, try to be the guy for every play. There's some times where he did too much. I know he had a couple fumbles. He had about 4 fumbles. But I think this is a guy from size, from mindset, from, being NFL ready. He is a back that, I think can come in on your third down, that, being a 6-foot back and definitely cause some damage. So I think he'll be someone that, will be a good player for the NFL. Number 5, you always know I'm going to throw someone from Miami there if I can. Number 5 is Tyreek Stevenson. He went to Georgia. I was there at Georgia with him. Saw him grow at Miami. The guy looks slimmer. The guy looks faster. The guy looks like he's enjoying football again. I'm super excited for Tyreek. I think he's going to be someone that, he has to find the right system for him. But if he can find it, he's going to be a really, really good player for whatever NFL team, can find a spot for him to play. And number 6 is Josh Downs, receiver, North Carolina. I think this guy won't be a number 1, but I think he'll be a really, really good number 2 that is, goes through the years and puts up really good numbers, but might not be, he puts up really good numbers, and throughout the year, he might not be like the Justin Jefferson or the OBJ, but he's going to be someone, that's going to have, 500 or 600 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He's going to have some really good blocks. And so I think he's going to be someone that, his name's going to be lingered around the NFL for a pretty long time, just based on, what I saw him do at North Carolina. So now that we're done with the college section, we're going to move into, the NFL professional news. So number 1 is my top 4 quarterbacks, plus I'm going to add 1 sleeper in there, okay? So the first 2 are my top 2. There's no debate to me. I would say that 3 and 4, it can kind of fluctuate. And then 5 is someone that I felt did a great job rising this year. So number 1, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty. I think when you guys go back and really watch him on some of the throws that he made, I think this guy is probably the most quarterback-ready quarterback right now. And obviously, there's older guys like, Aaron Rodgers and things like that. But when you're talking about the up-and-coming guys that I think that are going to take over the NFL, and I think he kind of already has, I think you have to put Joe Burrow at number 1. And obviously, I got to throw my dog Patty Mahomes at number 2. I mean, just look at this throw. Like, when you're talking about acrobatic throws, unreal arm angles, things like that, Patrick Mahomes is by far the best quarterback at that. But I also believe that, if you put Patrick in that offense a couple of years ago that Joe Burrow had with Cincy, I don't think that, Patrick is able to do what Joe Burrow did. Not saying that, Patrick is a bad quarterback, because I think he's one of the best to ever play football. But right now, to me, I think when I look at, like, if I had to pick out of all quarterbacks, who would I take? I would just have to take Joe Burrow. So next for me, Jalen Hurts. I think this guy is a great competitor. I think he is what you're looking for, a leader. I think he's someone that works hard, isn't someone that feels like, I'm owed this. He feels like, I earned this. And not only did I earn this, I'm going to continue to earn this. And to me, I've been at certain places in my life where, like, hey, I'm the starter. And, like, this is my dream. And obviously I got to keep working hard. But I'll be honest with you, Ed, there was one point where I did kind of relax. Where I was like, just be happy, just be happy that you made it here. And there's so many people, that never made it. And then, I learned over time that I got to keep working harder. Like, this is just a start. And I think that's something that, you hear, this is something that you hear Jalen Hurts consistently talk about, I'm just going to keep working. I'm just going to keep working. And so I think he's someone that, is going to take the Philadelphia Eagles for a lot of great years. And I'm super excited to see him continue some playing. So the last guy, Lamar Jackson, this guy's unreal. I don't know why a team hasn't signed him to a multi-million-dollar contract. I believe this guy was to go to the 49ers. The 49ers won a Super Bowl last year. This guy is phenomenal. I don't think there's a defense out there that says that they want to see him twice a year. Most defense don't even want to see him once a year. When you're talking about someone that has proven himself as a pocket passer and is absolutely dynamic, probably the best athlete on any field, period. So I think he's someone that, deserves to be in the top 4. You might be able to switch him up with Jalen Hurts, But, I think these four guys are four guys that are young, that are setting the example, that are winning, that, are breaking stats, that are doing things that, most quarterbacks aren't doing. And then for the last one, this is my sleeper of the year. I didn't think that I would ever get to see him play, but Brock Purdy, man, you bought out for the 49ers. I think you did really, really well. I do think that there is some learning that he has to do. Obviously, like there's a lot of learning everyone has to do, but I think this guy did a great job of coming in, competing at a high level with a lot of pressure, where a lot of people expect him to fail. A lot of people expected this guy, just to kind of just be out there and the 49ers run game or whatever kind of happen. But, this guy threw for over, 569 yards. This guy also had 3 touchdowns, and this is just in the postseason. To throw for 500 plus and have 3 tutties in the postseason as a rookie is phenomenal. So obviously, they have a really good team, but at the end of the day, there's so many guys that wouldn't have done that wouldn't have won some of the games that he won. A lot of times guys go back and watch some of his throws. Like he's running around, making guys miss, making plays happen. He's not just sitting in the pocket with a perfect pocket, throwing to receivers. So, I really like this guy. I think he's going to do a really good job, with the 49ers. I'm very interested to see, what kind of happens. I know that they have said that this is kind of his team and he's proven himself. So we know he had the injury, and I'm very interested to see how he bounces back and how he plays for next year. So next, what we're going to talk about is 3 quarterbacks that I think are going to have a really, really big season. And I will be honest with you guys, I am kind of biased. And the reason why I'm biased is because I know them personally. I know the work that they put in, and I really know their mindset. So number 1, Danny Jones, New York Giants. I think this guy is going to have a really big year. I think they need to get him, one more receiver. They need to sign Saquon. They cannot not let Saquon Barkley get away from them. He is a really good running back. I know, people say, oh, they kind of come and go, and yeah, they do. But when you talk about someone that's mindset, that sets a tempo, that every time he touches the ball, he has a chance to do something special with it. I don't think that there's many backs that is as complete as Saquon. Obviously Cap's an issue and things like that, but I think Saquon's someone that you guys got to keep for him, because if you give this guy 1 or 2 good receivers and a really good run game, there's a lot of damage that he's going to do. And I think if you take away that run game, now you're asking him to kind of, do everything for him or everything for your organization. Obviously, that's why you pay him the big bucks. He has to be able to do that. But, nowadays you got to be able to help you guys. Like you guys see that Lamar Jackson is top 4 quarterback, and he has to continuously get receivers, add pieces, things like that, so that his team can win. You can only go so far, especially by yourself. This is why football is a team sport. Like I need the guys around me, so they got to keep adding talent around this guy. But I think this guy really, really understands what he's doing, where he's going, what's processing, how to get in and out of plays really, really well. And so I think Daniel Jones, either whether it's this year, whether it's next year, if they can keep adding talent around this guy, I think he's going to be really, really good for the NFL. Next guy, and I know they've been shopping around some, Mac Jones. When he was doing his NFL prep, I had, the pleasure to be around this guy, just be around his mindset. The guy loves football. He is an absolute competitive junkie. I think that's the reason why he plays football. 1, yes, he's good at throwing, but 2, he just loves being out there, with the boys, competing and just seeing who's better at, basically throwing a football. And so, I think the Patriots need to do a better job putting talent around him. I think if you put any quarterback on the Patriots with some of the staff that they had, not saying that those guys are bad, because obviously they're in the NFL for a reason, but if you put him on if you put Mac Jones on like the Vikings or something like that, I think he has a lot more productive, because the people around him. Mac Jones is athletic to a sense, but he's not a guy that is just going to completely take over the game by himself. Like he needs good pieces around him. He is a true form of a general, of a field leader, a field general. And so for guys like that to be super successful, you need guys around him that can help him be successful. I think that, over time he could turn in. I think over time, he could turn in kind of like a Tom Brady, where, you can actually get more defensive guys and, have less offensive production or offensive productive guys, just because, he's able to elevate their game. But right now, man, this guy's young. He has a lot of talent. You guys go back and watch some throws he made his freshman year or his rookie year, and even back through, Alabama. This guy has the tools. He just needs, just more productive talent around him. So super interested in Mac Jones. I hope that, him and the Patriots can figure it out. But I think that this guy has a really, really good chance of being good in the future. So the last guy we're going to talk about is Sam Howell, North Carolina guy. He just got, told that he will be the starter for the Washington Commanders. So congrats to you, Anthony Boone. If you guys don't know Anthony Boone, he played at the University of Duke, great quarterback coach. He also trains Drake May. He has a couple of guys like Coastal Carolina and things like that. So this guy right here, Sam, will be ready to go. I'm super excited. He throws a really, really good deep ball. When you're talking about, Washington having a really, really good receiving core, now you have a quarterback that can put it up and give these guys, good chances to come down with the ball. I mean, I'm just super excited for this team. They've always had a pretty good defense. I think that's what's kind of kept them in the games last year. But now when you're talking about you can air it out more, you got a guy that, generally enjoys throwing deep balls. There are some guys that throw deep balls, and there's some guys that like Tyler Van Dyke is someone that thrives in throwing goes and posts and corners and things like that. So to me, Sam Howell's kind of the same way. And with the receiver core that they got, you can really take advantage of a quarterback that is really accurate with deep balls. So the last thing that we're going to talk about, and again, guys, I'll figure it out and I'll figure out a way to get this a little more readable, but we're going to talk about the NFC East. So number one, we're talking about New York. Like I said earlier, they got to keep Saquon. And to me, with their first round draft pick, they got to draft a receiver. So whether it's Jordan Addison from USC or whether it's Zay Flowers from Boston College, both of those guys are electric. They're a little different, but I think you got to keep Saquon in the backfield. You got to add, a receiver for Daniel Jones to say, hey, man, we're giving you the keys, but, we're going to add talent around you. You can't ask, Daniel Jones to basically do it all by himself. And you know what I mean? Like I said, again, this is a team game. So hopefully they can figure that side out and they can really add some pieces to him. For Dallas, and I know I was on a podcast the other day, and I like Dak. I don't think Dak is the worst quarterback. I think he's probably somewhere in like the top 10. But I also think that you guys need to draft a late round quarterback. To me, I don't think Hayden Hooker would be there or Hendon Hooker would be there. So I think you guys should draft, a late round quarterback, maybe like second or third. I don't think Hendon Hooker would be there, which is why I put Tanner McKee on here. I think Tanner's a smart quarterback that, it kind of fits what Dallas wants to do. He is a little bit athletic, but I think you guys need to draft you a quarterback that, you guys can kind of mold that if that can't make it or push it out, now you have this young guy. Now you have Cooper Rush, which Cooper showed, what he could kind of do. And so, I think that Dallas needs to obviously get a tight end. I think not we, but I think Dallas has some good tight ends. There should be Michael Mayer, who should be on Notre Dame tight end. That's really, really good. But the guy that I think would be a really good fit if they do get a tight end would be Darnell Washington, because he adds, a great run element, which is what I think the Dallas Cowboys want to kind of set. And when you add a tight end that is, going to be just as big or maybe even bigger than your left tackle, to me in the run game, that's a really good solution. So super interested to see what Dallas does with their draft picks, but this is kind of, my conclusions of what I think New York and Dallas should do. So next, we're talking about Philly. So for Philly, I think they're going to draft defensive guys, defensive line, defensive ends. Philly is always known for their internal pressures about, getting guys in your face, making you feel super uncomfortable. I think they can take Luke Van Ness. I also think they can take Kalijah Cansey. So Kalijah is a defensive tackle for Pitt. He's about 6 foot. Some people give him comparisons to Aaron Donald because he's a shorter size, defensive tackle, but he's someone super high motor, makes a lot of plays, does a great job with his hands, very active feet. So he's someone that I could see, maybe sliding in for Philly and taking a spot in their first round. I'd be super interested to see kind of how that unfolds. And last is the Washington Commanders. So for me, I think they need secondary help, especially at corner and safety. For me, I'm going more after safety. They have Kendall Fuller on one side. So, I would want to get Brian Branch if he's available from Alabama. If not, my pick personally would be Antonio Johnson. The guy's 6'3", he's big. He played in the SEC. He can fly around. And so I think when you're talking about a guy that can play long term, obviously I think, Brian Branch can. I think he will. But, I just like someone that is a little bit bigger, especially at my safety position. So last question that I'm going to talk about and it came from Miami Mando. So Miami Mando asked me, what is it like for a quarterback to know that he has a really, really good offensive line, specifically talking about, Tyler Van Dyke with, the kind of the Great Wall of China that Mario Cristobal is building around him. So that to me is everything. There's a lot of trust throws. There's a lot of throws that I've had where I've had like, a guard or a tackle kind of being bull rushed into me. And I got to know that, he's not going to just get basically planted on the back of my ankle or the back of me. Also, it just really helps you whenever you're talking about run game. I'm really big on run game. I think you need an elite run game. And when you have big maulers that can set the tone in the run game, it makes it really simple for RPOs, for play action, things like that, I think Tyler can take advantage of. It also helps with the long shots because, if you don't set a run game, then the corners play a little looser, the safeties play a little looser because the front six, which I mean, most of the time, if you have a bad run game, people playing you in too high. So now you just put yourself in bad situations, and it puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback when you become one dimensional, especially when you're talking about a guy that, this is his third or fourth offense that he's learning. And so I think he'll do a good job of grasping the offense, understanding it, and being productive. But having those guys up front that are some of the best in the country, that are just absolute dogs, really help you really understand what plant timing is. Because there's certain throws we have to go 1, 2, 3, ball out, 1, 2, 3, ball out, because maybe the receiver's running a slant, maybe he's running a seam, maybe he's running an 8-yard stop route. A lot of those are rhythm plant throws where if you hitch, you're too late. But let's say you have a bad offensive line. Maybe you have to hitch because your guard's getting bull rushed into you. And if you go 1, 2, 3 plant throw, you're going to have two hands up in the air and they're going to swat the ball down. So that's kind of where, it really allows you to trust your time, and allows you not to necessarily think about the rush, which honestly you should be thinking about the rush. But, if you have a line that is consistently getting beat, you can definitely in the back of your mind think, man, am I going to have a clean throwing lane with this guy not putting his hands up in front of my face, basically planting this tackle or guard in my lap. So yes, man, having a good offensive line can really, really help you mentally. And I would say for a quarterback, most of the time, especially in college, even in the NFL, most of the issues aren't physical. They're usually mental, whether it's a miscalculation. Most of the time they're mental, whether it's a miscalculation of, where you think the guy's going to end up. And a lot of times this happens when, you rush your throw. Maybe you got, a guy in your face and you're throwing him before his guy's out of his break. That's just kind of mental. A lot of times too is, some guys get in their own head where they think, hey man, I need to be perfect. And so then you become a robot and now you're not throwing like you used to. So, to me, the mental aspect of that is huge. And, having a good offensive line that, is going to protect you and that, are absolute dogs, to me, really, really helps you just kind of solidify, trusting kind of the whole process, which either way you should, you got to trust the guys in front of you, but, the better the guys in front of you are, just the more peace of mind that it really gives you. So I hope you guys have, really enjoyed this YouTube episode. Appreciate everyone for listening. I can't wait to see you guys on Friday for all the Miami fans. Peace.